It's funny how the smallest things make you feel the most defeated. Like standing in the cereal aisle of the grocery store for 20 minutes, doing mental math and trying to decide whether to buy the off-brand oats or just skip breakfast this week. Or when your debit card gets declined for a $2.75 bus fare, and you pretend to be surprised, even though you already knew you were running on fumes. I'm 27. I graduated with a degree in communications 4 years ago, right into a job market that treated my diploma like a coupon that had already expired. After almost a year of interviews, internships, and side gigs, I landed a full-time job at a small PR firm. I was making $38,000 a year, before taxes, and at the time, it felt like I'd made it. I took a selfie outside the office on my first day. I remember the caption, "finally getting started." But the thing no one really tells you is how much you need just to exist. Rent eats half my paycheck. Groceries, utilities, my phone bill, transit passes, it all adds up, and it always adds up to more than I have. Every month is a puzzle I solve with duct tape and prayers. I budget obsessively. I ration groceries like a pioneer preparing for winter. I've gotten creative, using rice as the base for every meal, skipping social events, forgetting birthdays because I can't afford gifts. Debt is the worst part. I owe nearly $45,000 in student loans. I pay the minimum because that's all I can manage, and the balance barely moves. Some months I wonder if I'm just paying to maintain a number on a screen, like renting the illusion of progress. I used to have big dreams. I wanted to work in nonprofit advocacy, maybe do international development. I imagined myself traveling, using storytelling to give people a voice. I wanted to matter. Now, I wake up at 6:30, take the bus to my job where I write press releases for brands I don't care about, then come home too tired to do much more than scroll TikTok and fall asleep in my clothes. I live in a tiny studio apartment in a part of the city that smells like exhaust and broken promises. It's loud at night, sirens, people arguing, stray dogs barking. The building shakes when the subway passes under it. My sink leaks, and the landlord still hasn't fixed the heater. But it's cheap enough that I can almost breathe. Every day, I feel like I'm balancing on the edge of something. One unexpected bill, one medical emergency, and it'll all collapse. That fear lives in my chest like a second heartbeat. I see it in my friends too. We don't talk about it directly, but it's there, in the way we always suggest staying in, or how we split the bill down to the penny. I've seen friends break down over parking tickets or lost side gigs. It's like we're all drowning in slow motion. And it's not just the money, it's what it steals from you. It's how it eats your time and flattens your spirit. I used to write poetry. I loved it, loved the rhythm, the images, the way words could bloom into something beautiful. I haven't written in over a year. There's no room left in me. Every part is occupied by survival. Still, I try to hold on to something. I keep a journal. Most entries are short, just fragments, lists, the occasional rant. But it helps. Some nights, I'll reread old entries and see how far I've come, even if it doesn't feel like it. I go to the library on Saturdays. I can't afford books, but the library feels like a cathedral of quiet possibilities. I walk a lot, too. It's free, and something about the rhythm of walking clears my head. I've learned to find joy in small things, a good cup of coffee when someone else buys it, the way light filters through the blinds in the morning, a friend texting just to say hi. Those moments are like warm breath on a frozen window, they don't fix anything, but they let you see through for a second. Sometimes, I get angry. Not at myself, but at the system. At how everything keeps getting more expensive while wages stay stuck in the past. At the way people my age are told to just work harder while billionaires make more in a minute than I'll see in a lifetime. It feels like a scam. Like we were promised something that doesn't exist anymore, security, upward mobility, even just a sense of peace. I still dream, but my dreams have shrunk. I don't think about owning a home anymore. That's like imagining a trip to Mars. But maybe someday I can have a job that feels meaningful and pays enough to not panic every month. Maybe I'll be able to afford therapy. Maybe I'll take a weekend trip somewhere quiet, where I can hear myself think. I don't know what the future holds. Most days, I'm just trying to get through the present. But I've learned that surviving is a kind of resistance. And so is hoping. Even when everything feels heavy and rigged and bleak, I keep that little flicker alive, because maybe, someday, things will be different. Not just for me, but for all of us. Maybe we'll build something better. Until then, I get up. I go to work. I stretch every dollar like a magician pulling scarves from a hat. And I keep walking. Always walking. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. Some mornings, I wake up already tired. Not from lack of sleep exactly, I try to get at least 6 hours, but from the weight of everything I know the day will bring. The pressure starts before I even get out of bed. My phone screen glows with 2 reminders, my rent's due in 4 days and my credit card payment is overdue. I hit snooze on both, though they never really turn off. I'm 27, and I work full-time at a marketing firm in the city. I should be doing okay. That's what they told us in college, get a degree, land a salaried job, and you'll be fine. But that story leaves out the part where rent climbs faster than raises, groceries cost more every month, and your paycheck disappears before it even hits your account. I make $52,000 a year, which sounded good at first. But after taxes, health insurance, and my monthly student loan payment, I'm left with barely enough to keep myself afloat. Rent is $1,400 for a shared apartment in a neighborhood that used to be affordable. By the time I cover bills, transit, and the basics, there's little left for anything else. Forget savings. Forget travel. Sometimes, forget dinner out with friends. Lately, I've been doing the mental math constantly, cutting things in my head while pretending I'm listening to a podcast on the train. If I switch to store-brand detergent and skip my weekly coffee shop visits, I might be able to buy new shoes next month. Mine have holes, and it's rained 3 times this week. But even that feels indulgent. It's a quiet sort of anxiety, always doing calculations, always weighing needs against needs. I remember being in high school, dreaming about a tiny bookstore cafe I'd own one day. I'd imagined shelves of paperbacks, the smell of cinnamon and ink, a place where people could slow down. I studied literature in college because I loved stories. Now, I write ad copy for snack food brands and fight guilt every time I think about quitting. I can't afford to chase dreams anymore. Dreams don't pay for groceries. The hardest part isn't the money itself, it's the feeling of being stuck in a system that never relents. Prices go up, wages inch forward, and every step feels like running on a treadmill that's slightly too fast. I've watched my parents work their whole lives and still worry about retirement. I used to think I'd escape that cycle. Now, I just want to not drown. Some days, I cope by scrolling Zillow listings I can't afford, imagining what life would be like in a little home with a porch and a dog. Other days, I numb out with Netflix, not even watching, just letting the noise fill the room. On better days, I write in my journal. It helps me feel like I still have a voice, like I'm more than just a number in someone else's spreadsheet. My friends are going through it too. We talk around it, mostly. Jokes about splitting appetizers, Venmo requests that sit unanswered for weeks. There's an unspoken understanding, we're all juggling the same invisible weights. Some of us moved back home. Some of us work 2 jobs. Some pretend everything's fine until it's not. I've learned to be resourceful. I clip digital coupons like it's a hobby. I barter chores with my roommate instead of hiring help. I picked up freelance gigs on weekends, writing blog posts for companies that underpay but pay fast. Every little bit helps, even if it adds up to exhaustion. What hurts most is not being able to plan. Everything feels temporary. I can't commit to anything long-term, not a lease, not a pet, not a relationship, because I don't know what the next year will look like. How do you build a life when everything's about survival? I know I'm not alone, and that helps. There's a weird sort of solidarity in shared struggle. It doesn't fix anything, but it makes me feel less broken. This isn't a personal failure, it's an economic reality. A broken system dressed up in bootstrap slogans. Still, I try to hold on to something. I keep a folder on my desktop called Someday. It's filled with pictures of bookshops, cafes, and little gardens. It's probably foolish, but it's mine. My reminder that I used to dream bigger than budgeting apps and gas prices. Maybe one day things will shift. Maybe I'll get that bookshop, or at least the time to write a book. For now, I keep showing up. I take the train. I write the copy. I eat the rice and beans. And sometimes, when I let myself hope, I believe it won't always be like this. I used to believe that if I worked hard and stayed focused, things would work out. That was the formula I grew up with: go to college, get a job, and life would more or less cooperate. But now, at 27, I feel like I'm living in a world where the rules keep changing, where I'm stuck in a game rigged to make me lose no matter how hard I try. I rent a one-bedroom apartment in a part of the city that's considered up and coming, which is code for expensive but not yet unbearable. My rent is $1,640 a month. It was $1,400 2 years ago. I remember sitting at my kitchen table when I got the notice about the increase, staring at it like it was written in another language. Nothing in my salary had changed, but somehow I was expected to come up with an extra $240 every month like it was nothing. I work full-time in marketing at a mid-sized company, nothing glamorous, but I'm good at it. I used to like it. But lately, I can't think about a single part of my life without calculating what it costs. Every grocery trip is a negotiation. Almond milk or regular? Do I really need cheese this week? I only get coffee out on Fridays now, my tiny rebellion. It costs me $4.25, which I know is ridiculous, but it makes me feel like I have some control over my life. The stress isn't just in my wallet, it's in my body. I wake up most days with my jaw clenched, shoulders tense like I've been bracing for impact all night. Sleep isn't restful anymore, it's just a pause. I lie awake some nights doing mental math: how much is in my checking, what's left on my credit card, how many days until payday. There's this constant, low-level panic humming in the background of my life, like a smoke alarm that won't shut off. I used to dream about going back to school, maybe getting a master's in design or user experience. I even started filling out applications last year. But the idea of taking on more debt just made me nauseous. I already owe $38,000 in student loans. I pay the minimum, and the number never seems to go down. It's like trying to empty a lake with a spoon. Sometimes I think about moving back home with my mom. It feels like defeat, even though I know she'd take me in without hesitation. But I've worked so hard to be independent. I want to be able to help her, not be another mouth to feed. She already works 2 jobs and sends money to my grandmother back in the Philippines. I can't add to her burden. I won't. Dating is complicated. It's hard to be open and vulnerable with someone when you're constantly worried about your bank balance. I've canceled dates because I couldn't afford the Uber or didn't want to admit that I couldn't split the bill. And it's not just money, it's the shame that comes with it. It's feeling like I'm behind, like I'm not where I should be. I scroll through Instagram and see friends traveling, buying houses, starting families. Meanwhile, I'm Googling cheap ways to stretch rice and wondering if I can get another year out of my sneakers. I know social media isn't real life, but it still gets to me. I compare. I spiral. I feel small. I have coping mechanisms, though. I go for long walks when I can't think straight. I journal most nights, just to get the noise out of my head. I make playlists, music has always been a lifeline. I even started therapy through a sliding scale clinic, which felt like a huge step. It helps. Not with the money, but with the weight of it all. I think what hurts the most is that I still have dreams, but they feel like ghosts, beautiful, distant, untouchable. I wanted to travel, to see Iceland's black sand beaches and Tokyo's neon nights. I wanted to adopt a dog, maybe learn to surf. I wanted to create something, maybe a podcast, maybe a little design studio of my own. Now I just want to not feel afraid all the time. I don't know what the future looks like. Some days I let myself hope. Other days I just focus on getting through the week. I'm still here. I still care. That counts for something, right? If nothing else, I hope this story makes someone else out there feel a little less alone. Because that's what's really insidious about all this, not just the money, but the isolation. Like you're the only one failing when really, the system is designed this way. I'm not lazy. I'm not reckless. I'm just tired. And I'm trying. I used to think I'd have my own apartment by now. You know, the kind with second-hand books on mismatched shelves and a kitchen window where I'd grow basil in chipped mugs. Nothing fancy, just mine. But I'm 27, and I still live in the back room of my mom's house in Sacramento. The posters on the wall are leftovers from high school, curling at the corners, and the closet's too small for both my clothes and my anxiety. Most mornings, I'm up before the sun because my job at the bakery starts at 5:30. It's not the worst job. I like the quiet hum of the ovens, the rhythm of shaping dough, and the way regulars light up when they see their favorite pastry waiting. But it's minimum wage. Even with tips, it's not enough. I work 6 days a week and pick up dog walking gigs and DoorDash shifts when I can. My body's always sore. My mind even more. Rent in the city? A 1-bedroom goes for more than I make in a month. Even splitting a place means giving up health insurance, which I finally got through Covered California after 3 years without. That little card in my wallet feels like gold. I've avoided going to the ER for panic attacks more times than I can count because I knew the bill would crush me. Now at least I breathe a little easier. But it comes at a cost. Every dollar I spend is a dollar that could have gone to groceries, student loan interest, car repairs, or the phone bill. I never thought I'd be this person, someone who cries in their car because they can't afford a dentist. I grind my teeth at night. I know it's stress. The free clinic waitlist is 6 months long, and I've already been putting off the eye exam I need because the glasses I wear are 5 years old and scratched to hell. Every decision I make now is a calculation. Can I skip laundry another week? Can I stretch this pasta into 3 dinners? Should I take that second shift or rest and risk feeling useless? It's exhausting. My friends say they're tired too, but somehow some of them manage vacations, new shoes, even weddings. I'm genuinely happy for them, but there's a sour guilt that grows in me when I can't show up for the engagement party because I'm choosing gas over gifts. Social media is a minefield. Everyone's making moves or building their brand. I scroll through their curated lives from the mattress on my floor and feel like I've failed some test I never even got to study for. There's a lot of noise online about hustle culture, girl boss mantras, and passive income streams, but no one tells you how hard it is to climb when you're already buried under debt and fear. I graduated into a pandemic. My internship offer vanished overnight. I moved back in with my mom thinking it'd be temporary. Then inflation hit. Rent exploded. Groceries climbed. Suddenly my part-time job was all I had, and it wasn't even covering the basics. I've never caught up. I don't think I even know what caught up feels like anymore. And it's not just me. My mom works 2 jobs, and sometimes we cross paths like ships at midnight. She still calls me Mija and makes arroz con leche when she can, even though she's just as tired. We don't talk much about money. I think we're both ashamed, her that she can't help more, me that I still need it. We talk in silences and soup. That's enough for now. Dreams? I had them. I wanted to travel. Greece, maybe. I studied art history, thought I'd teach, thought I'd write. I imagined a little classroom with sunlight through the windows and my students debating Frida and Van Gogh. But teaching credentials cost money, and time. I can't afford either. I've saved the brochure for the program I wanted. It's in a drawer under my socks. I pull it out sometimes just to remember I once believed in something bigger. I cope in small ways. I go to the library to feel rich in words. I take long walks in neighborhoods I can't afford, imagining the stories behind each door. I call my best friend every Thursday, and we vent, laugh, cry, repeat. I started journaling. I meditate when I remember. I make playlists of songs that feel like resilience. It's not enough, but it helps. Some nights, I lie awake and wonder if things will change. If I'll ever feel safe enough to exhale. If I'll ever have a home that doesn't come with the weight of shame. I want to believe I will. I have to. Because the alternative is too heavy to carry. The system isn't built for people like me. It demands more than we have and then shames us for not having enough. Everything feels like a moving target: rent, food, gas, insurance, and I'm stuck on a treadmill that's only speeding up. I'm running hard. I've been running for years. But I haven't moved forward. Still, I get up at 4:30. I make the coffee. I tie my apron. I smile at customers. I walk dogs in the rain. I come home and wash dishes. I listen to music. I try to sleep. I dream, a little. Not big dreams anymore. Just the dream of enough. Of a small, quiet life that isn't swallowed by bills and fear. That would be enough. For now, that would be everything. I used to believe I'd have my own studio apartment by now, maybe with a little balcony and enough sunlight to keep a fern alive. Instead, I'm 27, splitting rent with 2 roommates in a creaky old house where you can hear the guy upstairs sneeze like he's in the room with you. My bedroom window doesn't shut all the way, so winters feel like camping, and summers like punishment. Most mornings start with the ritual of deciding how broke I want to be today. I bike to work when I can, but sometimes my body just says no after a string of late shifts and I give in to the $2.75 bus ride. That tiny choice feels like a betrayal. It's not that I can't afford the fare, it's that I can't afford that fare every day, not if I want to eat something that didn't come from a box or a drive-through window. I work 2 jobs. One is part-time at a bookstore, quiet, decent discounts, emotionally fulfilling in a way. The other is food delivery in the evenings, which is as exhausting as it sounds, especially when you're biking uphill with a bag full of soggy fries. On weekends I freelance as a copy editor. The gig economy calls it flexibility. I call it no-off switch. I think what gets to me most is how everything feels temporary, like I'm always one bad day away from everything falling apart. One flat tire. One surprise medical bill. One shift cut. There's this constant math going on in my head. Can I afford eggs and toilet paper this week? If I say yes to dinner with friends, what gets bumped? How long can I delay the dentist without it becoming a bigger problem? The economic pressure isn't just a weight, it's like fog in my brain. I forget things. I miss texts. I cancel plans last minute. I feel like a bad friend, a bad daughter, a bad version of myself. My parents try to help when they can, but they're not swimming in cash either. They worked hard, still do, but the American dream has been shrinking with each generation. It feels like our future was pawned off to pay interest on someone else's profits. Sometimes I feel ashamed. Like I should have figured it out by now. I got a degree, didn't I? I did the internships. I networked. I said yes to unpaid gigs that promised exposure but delivered exhaustion. And yet, here I am, calculating if I can squeeze another week out of my contact lenses and eating rice 3 times a day because it's cheap and filling. I used to dream big. I wanted to write a book. Travel. Start a little side business that sold second-hand clothes and handmade jewelry. Now, those dreams live in a folder on my laptop labeled someday, gathering digital dust while I prioritize survival. And it's not just me. Most of my friends are in the same boat, working gig jobs, sleeping on couches, skipping therapy even though we need it. Some are better at hiding it. Their Instagram shows brunches and sunny park days, but I know the behind the scenes because we vent in DMs about how payday can't come soon enough. The system feels like it was built on the assumption that we'd fail unless we hustled every second. But even when we do, it's not enough. Wages haven't kept up with inflation. Rent eats half my income. Groceries are up, utilities are up, even the cost of breathing feels up. It's like we're all climbing a ladder that's being pulled up faster than we can ascend. Coping looks like finding little joys in cheap things $1.25 coffee at the bodega, library books, second-hand sweaters, listening to the same album on loop because it's a comfort. It looks like venting on group chats and finding solidarity in shared struggle. Some nights I light a candle and let myself dream again, just for a minute, before the anxiety kicks back in. What I crave most is stability, not riches, not luxury, just enough to stop panicking every time I swipe my debit card. Enough to fix my bike without spiraling. Enough to take a weekend off without guilt gnawing at me. Enough to say yes to my own life instead of always putting it on pause. There's a quiet grief that comes with this kind of living. Not loud or dramatic, just this ache, low and steady, for the life you thought you'd have by now. And yet, I'm still here. Still trying. Still showing up, even when it's hard. Maybe that's what resilience looks like, not bouncing back, but enduring. Not thriving yet, but refusing to give up completely. Maybe someday I'll get that studio with the balcony. Maybe the fern will even survive. Some days, it feels like I'm just treading water, not drowning, but not really swimming anywhere either. I'm 26, working full-time, living in a city that seems to stretch its arms wide just to pull my paycheck through the cracks. Every morning, I wake up knowing that my income and my expenses are locked in this endless battle where expenses always win. No matter how much I try, no matter how hard I budget, how many sacrifices I make, I'm stuck. And it's exhausting. I grew up believing that if I got a decent job, kept my head down, and worked hard, I'd eventually be able to build a stable life, maybe even buy a small place of my own someday. But reality looks a lot different. Rent alone eats up over half my monthly paycheck. It's this tiny, barely livable apartment that's too noisy and too cold in winter, but I can't move anywhere better because better means unaffordable. Utilities, groceries, transportation, the occasional night out to remind myself that life isn't just about bills, all of it adds up. And it all seems to creep up faster than I can keep up. Prices go up, wages don't. It's a slow, grinding kind of suffocation. Some mornings, I stare at the ceiling, thinking about the future, what I want, what I hoped for when I was younger. I wanted to travel, to see the world beyond these city limits. I wanted to go back to school, maybe pursue something creative or meaningful, something that sparks joy instead of just paying the bills. I wanted a dog. Simple things, right? But each one feels like a luxury I can't afford right now. Even the idea of saving seems laughable when I'm constantly juggling what little I make just to stay afloat. I'm honest with myself about how this ongoing pressure affects me. There's a gnawing anxiety that sits just beneath the surface, a constant hum of worry about what might happen if something unexpected breaks or if I lose my job. I don't sleep as deeply as I used to. Sometimes, I catch myself zoning out in the middle of conversations because my brain is busy running through lists. Did I pay that bill? What about next month's rent? Can I skip lunch to save a few bucks? It's like my mind is trapped in this loop of stress and calculation. Socially, it's isolating. I avoid invitations because even small expenses add up. A coffee with friends, a movie ticket, or a night out feels like a betrayal of my tight budget. I'm afraid people will judge me, or worse, think I'm flaky. But it's not about not wanting to be around people, it's about protecting what little I have. Sometimes I wonder if I'm slowly slipping into a kind of loneliness just because I can't afford connection. Coping with all this has been a journey of small survival tactics. I clip coupons like it's a sport. I meal prep every Sunday, making the same few recipes stretch out over days. I talk to myself, sometimes harshly, sometimes gently, trying to remind myself that I'm doing the best I can. I've even started journaling, trying to capture these feelings so they don't build up too heavy inside. It's a way to be honest with myself, to acknowledge the frustration without letting it consume me entirely. There are moments of hope, though, small sparks that keep me going. Like the time I was able to buy a used guitar with some saved up cash, and playing it made the world feel a little lighter, even if just for a few hours. Or when a friend tells me that I'm stronger than I realize. Those moments remind me that this pressure, as relentless as it is, doesn't define me completely. Still, it's hard not to feel trapped by the system. It's a system where prices rise, landlords profit, and wages lag behind. Where it feels like the odds are stacked against you before you even get started. I know I'm not alone in this, there are so many of us in similar boats, rowing against currents that never seem to slacken. But knowing that doesn't make it easier to face every day. I dream of the day when I won't have to live paycheck to paycheck. When I can say yes to things without calculating the cost first. When I can breathe without the weight of constant worry pressing on my chest. It feels far off, almost like a different lifetime. But I hold on to that hope because what else is there? Giving up would mean accepting a life half-lived. So here I am, still pushing forward. Still hoping for better days. Still trying to find pockets of joy in a world that often feels designed to wear me down. And maybe, just maybe, someday this struggle will be the thing I look back on, not with regret, but with the quiet pride of someone who kept going when it was hardest. For now, that's enough. I never thought I'd feel this stuck. Not in my 20s, not when I'm supposed to be building a life, chasing dreams, and figuring out who I want to be. But here I am, caught in this relentless cycle of earning just enough to cover the basics, while watching everything else slip further out of reach. It's like running on a treadmill that's speeding up, and no matter how hard I push, I'm barely staying in place. Every morning starts with a small, anxious calculation: how much money do I have? What bills are due? What can I afford to spend today without wrecking tomorrow? It's exhausting. The economic environment I'm living in feels like it's been designed to keep people like me, young adults who want stability, who want to build something meaningful, on a tight leash. Rent keeps rising, groceries cost more, the utility bills are brutal, and my paycheck doesn't stretch the way it used to. It's not just a number on a screen, it's the weight on my chest that never quite lifts. I work a decent job. Not terrible hours, not terrible pay. But every time I think, maybe I can finally save, something unexpected happens: a car repair, a medical expense, or just the sheer creep of inflation makes everything more expensive. I remember last month standing in line at the grocery store, my basket half full because I had to put things back. My heart sank when I saw the total at the register. That was one of those moments when reality hits you so hard that you want to cry in the aisle but also feel ashamed for even thinking about it. I try to cope by keeping my life simple. I stopped going out with friends as much. I cook at home, which I actually like, but it's also because eating out feels like an extravagance. I cancel subscriptions I once thought were small luxuries but now feel like a luxury I can't afford. Every purchase requires a justification, a cost-benefit analysis that sometimes makes me feel like I'm losing a part of myself. There's this constant pressure to be responsible, but it feels less like freedom and more like survival. What makes it worse is how this financial pressure gnaws at my emotional well-being. There's an underlying current of stress and anxiety that I can't seem to shake. I catch myself lying awake some nights, replaying every transaction, every decision, worrying about what might come next. The feeling of being trapped doesn't just hit when I'm paying bills, it's in the quiet moments when I'm alone with my thoughts. Sometimes I wonder if I'm failing myself by not being able to get ahead, by not being able to chase bigger dreams. Speaking of dreams, those are the hardest to face. I had plans once. I wanted to travel, see new places, meet new people. I imagined finishing school, maybe going back for a graduate degree. I dreamed of buying a home, creating a space that felt like mine. I wanted to explore hobbies, learn new skills, invest in experiences that make life rich. But all of those dreams feel like distant stars now, beautiful, yes, but impossibly far away. Postponing dreams doesn't make it easier, though. It just leaves a dull ache, a quiet grief for what might have been. I have to remind myself every day that putting those things on hold isn't giving up completely. It's just a pause. But some days, that pause feels endless, like it's turned into a permanent state of waiting for a future that might never come. Despite all this, I try to hold on to hope. Not the flashy, unrealistic kind of hope, but a quieter, steadier one. The hope that maybe the economy will shift, or maybe I'll find a better job, or maybe my skills will open doors I can't see yet. I hold on to the belief that this pressure isn't the whole story of my life. That underneath the stress and the sacrifices, there's a version of me that's still curious, still determined, still capable of creating something better. I also lean on the little things, friends who understand, moments of laughter, the small victories like finally paying off a credit card or managing to save a little bit each month. Those moments remind me I'm not invisible, not alone. That I'm more than the sum of my debts and bills. Sometimes I dream quietly, in those rare moments when I'm not consumed by worry. I picture a day when I can wake up without that heavy feeling of dread, when I can decide to take a trip without checking my bank account 5 times, when I can spend freely on a hobby without guilt. Maybe someday I'll live in a place where money doesn't dictate every choice, where I can invest in my happiness without fear. Until then, I keep moving forward, step by step, day by day. I try to be kind to myself, even when the system feels unforgiving. Because deep down, I know I'm more than this struggle. I'm still here, still dreaming, still fighting to carve out a life that's worth living. This is what it means to be young in today's world, grappling with a financial system that feels rigged against us, but holding on to the fragile hope that we can build something better, somehow. I wake up most mornings with a knot in my stomach, even before my feet hit the floor. It's that same old feeling, the one that comes from knowing I'll be juggling numbers all day, numbers that never seem to add up the way I need them to. At 26, I never thought money would feel like this, a constant pressure, a relentless weight pressing down on me, shaping every choice I make. The thing is, I have a job. It's steady, for the most part. But steady doesn't mean enough. My paycheck covers rent, utilities, groceries, a few necessities, and then it's gone. Sometimes before the month ends. The economic news talks about inflation slowing, or interest rates may be stabilizing, but that's not what I live. My grocery bills keep climbing, rent increases like clockwork, and every little expense feels like a test I'm destined to fail. There's a trap here, a system where expenses outpace income, and no matter how hard you try to stretch, it never seems to be enough. I remember when I first moved into my apartment 2 years ago. The place was modest but decent, and the rent felt manageable then. But with each renewal, the landlord raises it by another few percentage points. It's subtle, but over time, it's a brutal squeeze. I try not to let it show when I'm on the phone with friends or family because, honestly, I don't want to be the poor friend. But the truth is, I'm constantly counting pennies. Sometimes I calculate whether I can afford to eat out or if I should just grab something quick from home. Spoiling myself with a coffee or a small treat feels like a luxury, not a choice. The grocery store aisles have become battlegrounds. I find myself scanning prices, switching brands, choosing items not because I want them but because they're the cheapest option. Fresh produce? A rare indulgence. I stick mostly to canned, frozen, and processed foods because they last longer and cost less per meal. It's ironic how eating cheap often means sacrificing quality and health, but what else can I do? My doctor has mentioned I should try to eat better, but healthier options often come with a premium tag I can't afford. My emotional well-being takes hits I don't always recognize at first. Some days, the stress makes it hard to sleep. My mind races through bills, payments, and upcoming expenses. I lie awake wondering if I'll have enough left over for emergencies, or if another unexpected cost, car repairs, medical bills, or just a broken phone, will push me into crisis. The anxiety bubbles under the surface, making it tough to focus at work or enjoy time with friends. It's exhausting, and sometimes I feel isolated, like I'm trapped in a loop of survival that nobody else sees. I often think about the dreams I had when I was younger. Going to graduate school, traveling, maybe buying a home one day. All those things feel distant now, almost like fantasies. I've put them on hold indefinitely. Saving money is impossible when I'm barely covering the basics. Every extra dollar goes toward catching up or staying afloat. Retirement seems like a far-off concept that doesn't even apply to someone like me. It's hard not to feel stuck, like I'm running in place while the world keeps moving forward. But I cope the best I can. I keep a strict budget, use apps to track every expense, and search for side gigs here and there to add to my income. I've learned to be resourceful, using coupons, buying secondhand, and taking advantage of community resources like food banks when things get tight. Social media is a double-edged sword. Sometimes it makes me feel inadequate when I see others living comfortably, but other times, it connects me to support groups and advice that help me feel less alone. I also try to remind myself that this is just one chapter, not the whole story. I find small joys where I can, quiet walks in the park, cooking a decent meal from scratch, calls with loved ones, or diving into a book. These moments keep me grounded and remind me there's more to life than the numbers on a spreadsheet. Still, the financial pressure shadows everything, shaping my mood, my plans, and my sense of self-worth. Looking ahead, I'm cautiously hopeful. I'm exploring new career paths that might offer better pay or growth opportunities. I'm thinking about skills I can learn that could open doors to a more stable future. But hope is tempered by reality, it's slow progress, and the risk of setbacks looms large. I try to hold on to the belief that with persistence, things can improve. That one day, the paycheck will stretch farther, the bills won't feel like chains, and I can start reclaiming those postponed dreams. Being young and financially strained in this economy is a quiet kind of struggle. It's not always visible, and it's certainly not easy to talk about without feeling shame or fear. But I want to be honest about it because I know I'm not alone. Millions of people my age are navigating this same tightrope. And maybe by sharing this story, even in its raw, vulnerable form, it helps someone else feel seen, and maybe even hopeful that change is possible. For now, I'll keep waking up with that knot in my stomach, but I'll also keep moving forward, one day at a time. Because despite everything, I'm still here. Still trying. Still dreaming, even if those dreams have to wait a little longer. Me. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. Some days, it feels like I'm just treading water, barely keeping my head above the surface while the current pulls me farther away from the shore. It's this relentless push and pull between what I want, what I need, and what I can actually afford. Every morning I wake up with this knot in my chest, a dull ache that's grown into a constant companion over the last few years. It's the weight of financial pressure pressing down on me, and it's exhausting. I'm 27 now, but it feels like I've been carrying this burden for a decade already. Right out of college, I thought things would be different, that having a degree would mean a ticket out of uncertainty and struggle. Instead, I landed in a job that barely covers rent and bills, where my paycheck disappears faster than I can even count. The economy hasn't been kind. Prices for everything keep climbing, rent, groceries, utilities, but my income? It's stuck, or at best, inching up at a pace that feels like a cruel joke. There's this crushing reality that my expenses grow faster than my pay, and no matter how hard I try, it's like running on a treadmill that's speeding up. Every decision I make is filtered through this lens of scarcity. I don't buy things because I want them, but because I need them, or at least, I convince myself that I do. That $5 coffee? I've cut it out, even though it was a little comfort in my day. The fresh vegetables that used to be a treat have been replaced with canned goods and cheaper options. Even my social life has suffered. Going out with friends means choosing between a night of fun and making sure I can pay for the bus fare the next day. I find myself declining invitations more often than I care to admit, and sometimes I feel like I'm disappearing from my own life. The emotional toll is hard to describe. It's not just stress, though there's plenty of that. It's this gnawing feeling of being trapped in a system that's set up to keep people like me stuck. Like I'm running this endless race, but the finish line keeps moving further away. Sometimes, I'm filled with anger and frustration, at the world, at the economy, and even at myself for not having figured out a way out of this loop. Other times, it's shame that I can't just make it work like others seem to, shame for living paycheck to paycheck, shame for having to ask for help or rely on family when I promised myself I wouldn't. Coping has become a survival skill. I've gotten really good at budgeting, obsessively tracking every dollar, clipping coupons, and hunting for discounts. I work extra hours when I can, even though it drains me physically and emotionally. I lean on friends who understand, and sometimes I write down my frustrations in a journal, hoping that putting words to my struggles will make them more manageable. But at the end of the day, none of that changes the reality that I'm stuck. Dreams that once felt so close have been shelved indefinitely. I used to imagine traveling, exploring new places, or even just moving to a nicer neighborhood where I didn't have to worry about leaky pipes or noisy neighbors. I had plans to go back to school someday to study something I'm passionate about, art, writing, something that made me feel alive. But those dreams feel like luxuries now, distant and almost unreachable. The idea of investing in myself when I can barely cover rent feels irresponsible, and so I put it off, telling myself maybe next year. Sometimes, late at night, I lie awake wondering if things will ever get better. Will I ever get a raise that makes a difference? Will rent prices stop soaring? Will the cost of living level off, so I don't have to feel like I'm constantly losing ground? The fear is real that maybe this is just my life, a constant scramble to keep up, a never-ending battle against numbers on a screen and bills in the mailbox. And that's the hardest part, accepting that this pressure might not be temporary, that it might shape the rest of my adult life. Yet, despite all this, there's a flicker of hope that keeps me going. I remind myself that this struggle doesn't define me. I still have the capacity to dream, to grow, and to find joy in small moments. I'm learning resilience in ways I never expected, and maybe that strength will carry me through when things do get better. I don't know when or how, but I hold on to the belief that someday, the tide will turn. Until then, I keep moving forward, step by step, holding on to the idea that survival is its own kind of victory. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough for now. Sometimes, when I lie awake at night, the ceiling feels like it's pressing down on me, not because of the weight of the room, but because of the weight of everything I'm carrying. Financial pressure isn't just about money. It's about fear, frustration, and this relentless feeling of being trapped. I'm 27 now, and honestly, I'm exhausted. Exhausted from trying to keep up with a world that seems to be speeding past me while I'm stuck in slow motion. I remember the early days after college. I was full of hope, like everyone else. I thought, if I work hard, I can build a life. But that hope started to crack pretty quickly. I landed a decent job, and for a while, it seemed okay. But then rent went up. Groceries cost more. Utilities spiked. And somehow, my paycheck stayed the same. Or at least, it didn't keep pace with the price hikes. Every month, I'd watch my bank balance drain faster than I'd anticipated. It felt like running on a treadmill that kept speeding up. No matter how fast I ran, I wasn't getting anywhere. Most days, I try to make careful choices. I cook at home instead of eating out, but even groceries can be a gamble. Last week, I had to swap out my favorite brand of cereal for a cheaper, less tasty one just to stay within my budget. I ration my coffee because that daily treat feels like a luxury. When the electricity bill hits, I dim the lights and avoid using the heater, even when the cold creeps in. My phone plan is the bare minimum. I scroll past advertisements for things I want, knowing they're out of reach, and sometimes it stings more than I expect. This constant juggling act drains me emotionally. There's a quiet anxiety that hums beneath everything, a low-level stress that never quite fades. I catch myself holding my breath when I open bills, or when I think about the emergency fund I don't have. Sometimes, it's easier to just push those worries down, pretend they don't exist, but then they pop up in the middle of a meeting or right before I fall asleep. The pressure feels like a heavy fog, clouding my thoughts and making it hard to focus on anything else. What's hardest is the feeling of being stuck in a system that seems designed to keep me in place. Expenses climb like relentless waves: housing, healthcare, transportation, even taxes, but wages barely rise. I'm constantly playing catch-up. And there's this gnawing sense that no matter how many hours I put in, I'll never get ahead. It's like the rules are rigged. People say, work smarter, save more, but that advice feels hollow when the costs of just existing keep ballooning. I've had to postpone so many dreams. I wanted to travel after college, to see the world before settling down. Now, even a weekend trip feels like a luxury. I thought about going back to school for a master's degree, but the thought of more debt terrifies me. Starting a family? That feels like a distant, almost impossible dream when I worry about rent, healthcare, and providing basic stability. I carry these postponed dreams with me, like unopened letters from my future self, letters I'm too afraid to read because they remind me of what's slipping away. Despite all this, I try to cope the best I can. I found small pockets of joy, in laughter with friends over cheap takeout, in quiet moments reading a book at the park, in the occasional pay-it-forward gesture when I can afford it. I've learned to be resourceful, to stretch every dollar, but also to be gentle with myself. Some days, that's enough. Other days, it's not. I talk about this with a few close friends, and sometimes, just voicing these feelings helps. They remind me I'm not alone. But I also see their struggles reflected in my own, and that collective weight feels heavy too. We're all caught in this economic squeeze, wondering how to keep going without losing ourselves. Looking ahead, I try to hold on to hope, even if it feels fragile. I dream of a day when financial stress doesn't dictate my every decision, when I can save, invest in myself, and maybe even help others. I want to believe that this system can change, or that I can find a way to change my place in it. Until then, I'm taking it one day at a time, one choice at a time, carrying this mix of hope and exhaustion with me. Living with ongoing financial pressure is like walking a tightrope without a safety net. You keep moving forward, even when you're scared, even when the ground feels far away. Because giving up isn't really an option. Not when the stakes are this high. And that's my reality. Not glamorous, not heroic, just honest and raw. I never thought I'd be writing about this, the slow, grinding weight of money slipping through my fingers. But here I am, almost 28, and the pressure feels like a constant, low hum at the back of my head, never quite letting me rest. It's been years now, this battle between what I earn and what life demands of me, and somehow it always feels like I'm losing ground. Growing up, I had dreams. Simple ones, maybe, owning a small apartment, having a few close friends over for dinner, maybe traveling somewhere warm once a year. But the closer I've gotten to adulthood, the more those dreams seem to drift further away, like stars I'm reaching for but can't quite touch. I work full-time, usually more than that, actually, at a job that pays just enough to keep me afloat but never quite enough to feel stable. Rent alone takes nearly half my paycheck. And every month, I watch the prices rise: groceries, utilities, transport, even the coffee I treat myself to when I'm desperate for a little break. It's as if everything is on a fast track upward, while my income lumbers behind, struggling to keep up. The system feels rigged. It's not a story of laziness or bad choices, it's about the relentless squeeze, the feeling that no matter how hard I work, the goalposts keep moving. When I was younger, I thought if I just worked hard enough, saved enough, I'd get there. But the reality is more complicated. Inflation eats away at savings, unexpected expenses come out of nowhere: a medical bill, a broken phone, a car that needs fixing, and suddenly I'm scrambling to patch holes instead of building something solid. On the surface, I manage. I'm good at budgeting, at cutting corners, at making sacrifices. But underneath, it's exhausting. It's the small daily calculations. Do I eat out this week or skip it? Should I buy that new pair of shoes or hold off until next month? Should I even open that credit card statement or pretend it doesn't exist? These decisions become mental knots, threading through every part of my day, draining my energy and peace of mind. Sometimes, I feel ashamed. Like I'm not measuring up. Friends talk about investing or buying homes, about upgrading their lifestyles, and I can only smile and nod, pretending I'm on the same path. But inside, I'm quietly panicking. Because if things get worse, if I lose my job, or an emergency hits, what then? I don't have a safety net, just this thin, fragile line of income and hope. Emotionally, it's a roller coaster. I swing between frustration, despair, and stubborn determination. Some nights, lying in bed, I feel the weight pressing down on my chest, a mix of anxiety and helplessness. Other times, I try to drown it out with small joys, listening to music, chatting with a friend, or binge-watching a show that makes me laugh. Those moments are lifelines, brief glimpses of light in a daily grind that often feels relentless. I've had to postpone a lot of dreams. I put off going back to school because the tuition would be crushing. I shelved plans to move to a city I loved because the rent was astronomical. Travel? A distant luxury. Even relationships get complicated when you're worried about bills. How do you build a future with someone when you can barely build one for yourself? The one day that used to feel hopeful now feels like a placeholder for a future that might never come. Coping is a skill I'm constantly refining. I've learned to ask for help when I can, even if it's uncomfortable. I lean on friends who understand, who don't judge. I read about personal finance to try to get smarter, to find any edge I can. And I try to hold on to hope, fragile as it is. Because giving up isn't an option, not when this is my life, my future, my story. I want to believe that someday, I'll break free from this cycle. That I'll look back and see these years as a chapter, not the whole book. Maybe I'll find a better job, maybe the economy will shift, maybe my sacrifices will pay off in ways I can't see yet. But until then, I'm here, living this daily struggle, trying to stay honest about how hard it is, and trying to find meaning in the small victories. It's not glamorous or inspiring. It's just real. And if anything, sharing this feels like a step toward reclaiming some control, some dignity. Because the truth is, so many of us are in this fight, feeling trapped in a system that doesn't seem built for us to win. But even in the struggle, we hold on. We endure. We dream. I never imagined I'd feel this way, like I'm constantly running in place, exhausted but nowhere closer to where I want to be. I'm 26, working full-time, and yet money feels like a distant mirage, always slipping through my fingers no matter how hard I chase it. The truth is, I'm living in a pressure cooker of financial stress, and it's starting to shape everything about my life, how I think, how I feel, and how I even dream. I grew up thinking that if I worked hard, things would eventually get better. My parents always told me, keep your head down, save a little, and good things will come. But now, staring at my bank account and my monthly bills, I realize that good things don't just come anymore, they're fought for every single day. The cost of living keeps climbing faster than my paycheck does, and the gap between the two feels like a canyon I can't bridge. Every morning, I wake up and crunch the numbers before I even get out of bed. Rent, utilities, groceries, gas, phone bill, student loans, and whatever little miscellaneous expenses pop up, they all line up like a brutal parade of reminders that my money isn't enough. I make about $35,000 a year after taxes, which sounds okay on paper, but when you're juggling $1,200 rent and $150 for utilities, it disappears in the blink of an eye. I've learned to live on a strict budget, but the budget feels like a tightrope stretched over a pit. One unexpected expense, a broken phone screen, a car repair, a doctor's visit, and I'm plunged into panic mode, juggling between paying bills or eating. The economic environment we're stuck in is brutal. Inflation feels like a constant shadow that follows me around. I see the prices rising at the grocery store every week. The same box of cereal that cost $3 last year is $4 now. Gas prices fluctuate wildly, and I've had to reduce how often I visit my family or friends, not because I don't want to see them but because the cost is just too much. Every decision is weighed against a ledger in my head. Can I afford it? Will this set me back? The simplest things, like a night out, a movie ticket, or even a birthday gift, become luxuries, rare treats rather than normal parts of life. I feel trapped. Like the system itself is stacked against people like me, where expenses grow unchecked, but wages crawl forward in tiny steps that never quite catch up. It's frustrating and heartbreaking. I want to believe in the idea of upward mobility, but it's hard to see it in action when I feel like I'm drowning just trying to stay afloat. The cost of healthcare, rent, food, they all feel like barriers too high to climb. Meanwhile, the politicians talk about economic growth and recovery, but none of that seems to trickle down to someone like me. Emotionally, this constant financial pressure is exhausting. There are nights when I lie awake, stomach churning, worrying about how I'll pay my next credit card bill or if I can scrape together enough to cover car insurance. It's like carrying an invisible weight that drags me down. I catch myself feeling ashamed for needing help, ashamed for not being successful enough by society's standards, ashamed for having dreams that seem impossible. I sometimes avoid friends or family because I don't want to admit how stretched thin I am. It's lonely, this secret struggle. But I cope the best I can. I try to find small moments of joy, watching a sunset, calling a friend on a walk, losing myself in a book borrowed from the library instead of buying one. I've learned to celebrate tiny victories, like making it through a month without missing a bill or finding a good deal at the grocery store. I remind myself that I'm not alone, that millions of people are feeling the same pressure, and that somehow, that shared experience connects us. Yet, despite all this, I've had to postpone so many dreams. I wanted to travel, see new places, experience the world beyond my small city. I wanted to start saving for a home, maybe a cozy apartment of my own one day. I imagined going back to school to pursue a degree I'm passionate about, something that could help me build a better career. But those dreams feel like distant stars now, too far away to reach when the day-to-day expenses demand all my energy and focus. There's a part of me that worries this cycle will never break. That I'll keep working just to survive, never truly thriving. I worry about what it means for my future, for starting a family someday, for having the freedom to live without constant anxiety over money. But I also try to hold on to hope, the hope that someday the economy will stabilize, that wages will rise meaningfully, that I'll find a path forward that feels less suffocating. For now, I take it one day at a time. I keep my head down and my eyes open, looking for opportunities to improve my situation even in small ways, whether it's picking up an extra shift, learning new skills online for free, or building a support network of friends who understand this struggle. I remind myself that my worth isn't measured by my bank balance, even if it feels like the world sometimes acts like it is. Being young and financially squeezed in today's world feels like trying to sprint through quicksand. But even trapped in this system, I'm still here, still fighting, still dreaming, even if those dreams have to wait a little longer. And maybe that's enough, for now. Every morning, the sound of my alarm dragging me out of sleep feels heavier than the day before. It's not just the exhaustion from work or the looming deadlines, it's the weight of knowing that once I open my eyes, I'm stepping into a world that expects me to keep up with a pace that's impossible to maintain. My paycheck stretches, but not nearly as far as it used to, and the bills, oh, the bills, they pile up relentlessly, like an unending tide slowly pulling me under. I'm 27, and I never imagined my life would feel like this. Back when I was younger, I had these vivid dreams, traveling, owning a small apartment filled with plants, maybe even going back to school someday to study something I loved instead of something practical. But those dreams feel like distant stars now, too far away to reach, shining faintly beyond the smog of financial pressure. Every decision I make is filtered through the lens of money, how much it costs, how I can scrape by, whether it's worth the strain. Should I buy groceries at the store down the street, which is cheaper but has less fresh produce, or pay a little more to get something healthier? Should I call the doctor about this persistent cough, knowing the copay will set me back a week's worth of lunches? Should I take the bus and add an hour to my commute to save on gas, or drive and save time but risk needing to fill up more often? The worst part is the constant feeling of being trapped. It's like running on a treadmill set at a speed that's just a little too fast. No matter how hard I sprint, the ground beneath me keeps moving backward. Rent has gone up twice since I moved into my tiny studio apartment 2 years ago, but my salary has only inched up a bit. Utilities climb every season, groceries get more expensive, and transportation costs bite a little deeper every month. I'm not even living beyond my means, I'm living exactly within them, and yet, I'm losing ground. This trap isn't just about money. It's about hope, too. Sometimes I lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this is how life is meant to be. Is it supposed to feel like a constant negotiation between survival and sanity? I remember when I first started my job, feeling optimistic about climbing the ladder, getting promotions, maybe one day buying a car or putting money down on a home. But now those thoughts seem naive. Even a new pair of shoes feels like a luxury. I'm exhausted, not just physically but emotionally. The constant stress gnaws at me. I find myself snapping at friends or feeling distant because the weight of financial insecurity makes it hard to be present. I carry guilt for the little things, like saying no to outings or gifts, even though I know it's necessary. The shame that comes with being the poor one in social settings sticks like a second skin. I don't want pity, but sometimes the isolation is unbearable. Yet, amidst all this, I have my ways to cope. Music is a refuge, a playlist of songs that let me vent without judgment. I write sometimes, scribbling my frustrations into a journal, releasing some of the pressure in ink. On good days, I allow myself brief moments of gratitude, like the warmth of the sun through my window or the smell of coffee brewing in the morning. These small things remind me there's still beauty, even when life feels like a grind. I've learned to be incredibly resourceful. I clip coupons, cook meals from whatever's cheapest and in season, and have become an expert at budgeting. I know every cent that leaves my account, and every cent that comes in feels like a victory. But beneath that resourcefulness is a lingering fear: what happens if there's an emergency? A car breakdown, a sudden illness? There's no safety net, no cushion to soften the blow. Sometimes, I feel angry at the system. Why is it that expenses can soar while wages crawl? Why does it seem easier for the rich to get richer, while people like me are stuck in a cycle of barely making ends meet? The economic environment feels rigged, designed to keep people running in place. It's demoralizing to realize that no matter how hard I work, I'm unlikely to get ahead. I'm not asking for a handout, just a fair chance. I dream, though. Quietly, in the moments when the world softens around me. I dream of stability, of peace. I dream of waking up one day and not worrying if the money in my account will cover rent. I dream of taking a trip, even if it's just to a nearby town, just to feel the freedom of exploring without the cloud of financial stress. I dream of a future where I can pursue passions rather than survival, where my choices aren't dictated by price tags. It's hard to hold on to these dreams, especially when every day demands so much of me. But they're all I have left to keep me moving forward. They remind me that my current reality isn't permanent, even if it feels endless now. So, I keep going. I keep working, budgeting, hoping. I cling to the idea that one day, things might change, not just for me, but for everyone caught in this relentless tide of economic pressure. Until then, I survive in the cracks, finding light where I can, learning to breathe through the struggle. Because giving up would mean surrendering the only hope I have. And I'm not ready to do that yet. It's hard to explain what it feels like to wake up every day knowing that no matter how hard you work, the mountain of bills, rent, and unexpected expenses will still be waiting at the end of it. I'm 27, living in a small one-bedroom apartment I can barely afford, working 2 jobs that leave me drained but never quite ahead. The thing that gets to me the most isn't just the money itself, it's the feeling of being trapped in this endless loop, where prices keep climbing, but my paycheck stays stubbornly the same. I remember when I first got my full-time job fresh out of college. I was hopeful, confident even, I had dreams, maybe moving to a bigger city, traveling at least once a year, buying a decent car, or even just saving up enough for a small emergency fund. But over the years, those dreams have faded into the background noise of daily survival. Every month, it's the same story: rent takes almost half my income, groceries eat up the rest, and then there's the bills, electricity, internet, phone, and sometimes medical expenses. The little things, like going out with friends or buying a book, have become luxuries I can't justify. The economic environment feels like a storm I'm stuck in without a shelter. Inflation keeps pushing the cost of everything higher. When I started this job 3 years ago, a gallon of milk was $3.50, now it's almost $5. I've stopped looking at prices before I buy anything because it just stresses me out too much. But that doesn't mean I don't feel the pinch. Every purchase feels like a choice between today's comfort and tomorrow's uncertainty. Sometimes I wonder how I got here. Was it bad luck? Poor choices? I'm not sure. I've always been careful, budgeting, tracking expenses, trying to find side gigs. But the more I try, the more it feels like the system is designed to keep people like me locked in place. I see the news talk about wage growth and economic recovery, but my reality feels disconnected from those headlines. It's as if I'm living in a parallel world where the numbers don't add up. The emotional toll is heavy. Some days, it feels like a weight pressing on my chest so hard I can barely breathe. There's the constant anxiety: what if the rent goes up again? What if my car breaks down? What if I get sick and the medical bills wipe out what little I have saved? That fear gnaws at me, even in moments of calm. It's exhausting. I've lost sleep over it more times than I can count. Some nights, I just lie awake thinking about what could go wrong. To cope, I've built little rituals. I cook meals at home instead of eating out, even if it means repeating the same recipe over and over. I cut out streaming services one by one. I avoid social media sometimes because seeing people post about vacations, new gadgets, or fancy dinners only deepens the sense of missing out. And yet, I try to hold on to small joys: a walk in the park, a coffee with a friend, a good book from the library. Those moments remind me that life isn't just about money, even if money controls so much. But there's also this sense of postponement that's hard to shake. I put off going back to school, even though I know an advanced degree might open better doors. I haven't been able to save for a down payment on a house, and buying a car feels like a distant fantasy. Even relationships feel complicated. How do you build a future with someone when you're both juggling bills and debt? I sometimes feel like I'm living in a paused state, waiting for some breakthrough that may never come. I know I'm not alone in this feeling, though. Talking to friends, many of them are in the same boat, caught in this slow-moving trap of economic pressure. Some have moved back in with their parents to save money, others work multiple gigs like me. We share a quiet understanding, but there's also a collective frustration that sometimes bubbles over. Yet, despite everything, I hold on to hope. I remind myself that this isn't forever. Maybe the economy will shift. Maybe I'll get a promotion or find a better paying job. Maybe new opportunities will arise if I keep pushing forward. It's not a naive hope but a necessary one, because without it, the struggle would feel unbearable. For now, I take it one day at a time, trying to be gentle with myself amid the pressure. I celebrate small victories: a paid bill, a day without stress, a moment of laughter. And I keep dreaming, even if those dreams have to be quiet for now. One day, I want to look back on this time and say I made it through, that despite the weight of financial strain, I never gave up on the possibility of a better life. Living with ongoing financial pressure feels like walking a tightrope stretched over uncertainty. It's scary and exhausting and often lonely. But it's also a story of resilience, one I'm still writing, even when the pages feel heavy. I never imagined that being in my mid-20s would feel like this, like I'm drowning in a sea of bills that never stops rising, while my paycheck barely keeps my head above water. It's not just the numbers on a bank statement, it's the constant, gnawing pressure that shadows every decision I make, every moment of the day. Living with this ongoing financial strain has become my reality, and it's exhausting in ways I didn't expect. I graduated college with a decent degree and some hope for a stable job. But the economy shifted, and suddenly the job market didn't have much to offer. I found something, but it barely paid enough to cover rent, food, and the minimum on my student loans. Every month, I try to budget. I sit down with my phone, open up my banking app, and do the mental math that always ends the same way: not enough. Not enough to save, not enough to splurge even a little, and barely enough to cover the basics. Utilities climb, rent jumps again, groceries get more expensive, yet my income feels like it's stuck in place, or worse, slipping behind. It's like running on a treadmill that's speeding up, but my legs are stuck in quicksand. No matter how fast I run, no matter how hard I try to stretch every dollar, the gap widens. I have a decent job, but raises feel like a mirage, promised, talked about, but never quite materializing. The world around me moves forward, but I'm stuck in place, watching everything get further out of reach. This pressure sneaks into my days in the smallest ways. I hesitate to turn on the heater during winter, wrapping myself in layers even when I'm shivering just to save a few dollars on the electric bill. I count every grain of rice when cooking, trying to stretch meals for an extra day or two. I avoid calls sometimes because I'm scared it's a creditor or some unexpected charge I can't handle. Even socializing feels like a luxury. Going out with friends means spending money I don't have. So I stay home, scroll through social media, and watch other people live lives that seem effortless in comparison. There's a deep loneliness to this kind of financial stress, one that doesn't just come from being broke but from feeling invisible in a system that wasn't designed for people like me. It's hard to explain, but it feels like the world is set up to keep you trapped. Bills keep rising: health insurance, rent, food, transportation, always faster than I can keep up. Sometimes I think about how the people who built these systems probably don't live with this constant anxiety. They don't have to decide between filling up their tank or buying groceries, or choosing between a necessary doctor's visit or letting the pain linger. I've had to postpone so many dreams because of money. I wanted to travel, to see new places, meet new people, and experience life outside of my tiny apartment and the same city streets I've walked 100 times. I wanted to start saving for a future, maybe buy a house, or even just a reliable car, but those ideas feel like distant fantasies now. Instead, I'm just trying to survive, to keep up with the rising tide of expenses and the weight of loans that feel like chains around my ankles. Some days, the hopelessness is overwhelming. It seeps into my thoughts and makes me question if all this hard work and sacrifice will ever pay off. Will I ever feel secure? Will I ever catch up? Or is this the rest of my life, a series of small battles fought and lost against an invisible, relentless force? But despite everything, I keep going. I find small ways to cope, like taking long walks to clear my head, reading books from the library instead of buying new ones, and talking honestly with a few close friends who understand and don't judge. I've learned to ask for help, even though it's hard to admit I need it. And I try to remind myself that this moment, as suffocating as it feels, isn't the whole story. Sometimes, late at night when the world is quiet and the pressure momentarily fades, I let myself dream again. I imagine a day when I can breathe freely, when money isn't a constant worry, when I can say yes to opportunities without hesitation. I picture a future where I'm not just surviving, but thriving, where the weight of these years no longer drags me down. It's a fragile hope, but it's there. And holding on to that hope, even just a little, is what keeps me moving forward, one difficult day at a time. Every morning, the alarm feels less like a call to start the day and more like a countdown to yet another round of financial juggling. I wake up, already knowing the script: stretch tight, grab a breath, and brace myself for the same old grind. I'm 27, working full-time in a decent job that should, by all logic, be enough to live comfortably. But it never feels that way. Not in this economy. Not now. Bills don't care that I barely have time to breathe, or that my paychecks barely stretch to cover them. Rent keeps climbing, groceries are priced like luxury items, and every unexpected expense, like a car repair or a medical visit, feels like a bomb threatening to shatter the fragile balance I try to maintain. It's like I'm on a treadmill that's speeding up every month, but my legs aren't getting any stronger. Expenses grow faster than my income, and the gap feels like a canyon I'm doomed to stare into forever. I remember the days when I thought things would be different. When I was fresh out of college, I dreamed about buying my own place, traveling, even starting a small business someday. I imagined late-night dinners with friends, spontaneous weekends, and not worrying if I could afford that extra coffee or a new pair of shoes. But those dreams have faded, folded into the corners of my mind, tucked away because they're luxuries I just can't afford anymore. Every decision now is filtered through the lens of money. Do I pay for a doctor's visit, or do I let the pain linger and hope it goes away? Should I buy groceries that will last the week, or can I squeeze by with less, even if it means feeling hungry at night? Sometimes I count every penny before I even think about treating myself to something small, because it feels irresponsible in the face of the mountain of expenses waiting to be paid. The weight of it all creeps into my thoughts and emotions, too. There's a constant undercurrent of stress, like a shadow I can't shake. Some nights, it keeps me awake, heart racing, mind spinning with worries about rent, utilities, and whether I'll still have a job if the economy shifts again. I try to put on a brave face, but inside, there's a gnawing anxiety that feels as real and raw as any physical pain. I don't talk about it much because it feels embarrassing, like I've failed somehow. Everyone around me seems to be moving forward, getting promotions, buying homes, starting families. Meanwhile, I'm stuck, surviving paycheck to paycheck, trying to make peace with the fact that my progress will never look like theirs. Social media only makes it worse. Seeing friends post about vacations or new cars reminds me how far behind I feel, even though I know I'm doing the best I can. To cope, I've developed some rituals. I write in a journal, pouring out the frustration and fear so it doesn't eat me alive. I've taken up walking because exercise helps release some of the tension and clears my mind. I've also learned to lean on the small moments, morning coffee on the balcony, a call with a close friend, a sunset that reminds me there's beauty beyond the grind. These moments don't erase the pressure, but they help me breathe through it. What scares me most is the feeling of being trapped. It's like I'm stuck in a system designed to keep me barely afloat while everything else gets more expensive and out of reach. The idea of getting ahead feels like a cruel joke, a goal that's there but impossible to grasp. The future feels distant, blurry, and uncertain. Yet, despite it all, there's a stubborn spark of hope that won't die out. A quiet voice inside that says, "Keep going. Something better has to come." I hold on to that hope when I can. I remind myself that this chapter, as tough as it is, isn't the whole story. Someday, maybe I'll find a way to break free, whether that's through a new job, better wages, or simply finding a way to live with more ease. For now, I'll keep waking up, making those hard decisions, and pushing forward, even when it feels like the system is working against me. Because surrendering to despair isn't an option when you still have dreams to chase, even if they have to wait. Being young and struggling financially isn't just about numbers. It's about the quiet grief of watching life's possibilities shrink, the exhaustion of constant sacrifice, and the fragile hope that keeps you from giving up. It's messy and hard and sometimes unbearably lonely. But it's real, and I'm living it, day by day, step by step, heart on the line. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.